Alright, so now we've hit the really good stuff. This is the fun stuff in which you get G prime, and now you have to answer questions about G. Like this much better. And we'll start here with A. On which interval or intervals is the original function g of x increasing? One thing to keep in mind is that we are looking at g prime of x, and we're answering questions about g of x. Okay, please keep that in mind, because it gets confusing when we're talking about more than one function. So, nevertheless, on which interval, so we want to know when g of x is increasing. Well, we know that when g of x is increasing, g prime of x is positive. Well, we also know from the last video that when g prime of x is positive, it means that g is above the x-axis. Above. That doesn't look like above, so let me back up a little bit. G prime is above the x-axis. So now, if we can make that connection, these are the same things. Okay, g prime greater than 0 is the same thing as saying g prime is above the x-axis. So therefore, all we have to do is look for where g prime is above the x-axis. And we can see clearly, hopefully, that in between these two x values, and then to the right of where x is equal to, looks like 3.3. Okay, so 3.3 to infinity, and then what is this, like negative 2.9? I don't know, and then down all the way to, or over all the way to like negative 0.5, something like that. Okay, so we can't know for sure because we don't have clear x-intercepts, but those are the intervals from negative 2.9 all the way to negative 0.5, and then also from 3.3 to infinity is, did it say the graph stops? Assume this is, the entire graph. Oh. Great. Okay, so it's not all the way to infinity, it's going to be all the way to 4. Okay, so 3.3 to 4. Always have to go back and reread things, because you might miss something like I just did. Okay, but I caught it, so that's good. So 3.3 to 4 is where g prime is above the x-axis, and we can see here that it's probably going to ask for decreasing now. Yes, so we're asking for when g of x is decreasing. Well, g of x is decreasing when g prime of x is less than 0, or looking at the graph, when g prime is below the x-axis. This is great when you get this, because there's very little work to do. You just look at it. Okay, so we can see that I'm estimating that negative 3 to positive 4 is my domain. So from negative 3 then to, what did I say that was? Negative 2.9. Really? Oh, 3/4. Sorry, not negative 3. I got it. You probably already told me. You probably already saying to yourself, "Oh, he made a mistake." So the domain I'm looking at is 1, 2, 3, 4. So negative 4 to 4. Therefore, negative 4 to negative 2.9. The graph of f, or g prime, is below the x-axis, and then from negative 0.5 all the way to 3.3, the graph of g prime is also below the x-axis. So there you go. That's when g of x is decreasing. Okay, and now suppose that g of 0 is equal to 0. So let's draw that. G of 0 is equal to 0, so therefore, if this is then the graph, our estimate of the graph of g of x, is the function g of x ever positive? Well, that is, are there any x so that g of x is greater than or equal to 0? Well, we already know that g of x is equal to 0 right there at the origin. But it says that, well, I don't know. Let's take a look. We've got, well, this is the tricky part, because you're looking at the graph of g prime, and I like a sign chart. Okay, so I'm going to make a sign chart, and I don't want to make it in blue because I have a lot of blue on here. So we have negative 4 for this part, and then what are our critical points? Our critical points are when g prime is equal to 0, and that would be at negative 2.9. See, it's hard for me to look at the graph and then determine, is g of x ever positive? So negative 4 to negative 2.9, And then we also have a critical point where f prime is equal to 0 at negative 0.5, and then we have a 3.3, and then we have a 4 way over there. Okay, so now I've got my G prime chart, and I can tell that from negative 4 to negative 2.9, G prime again is less than 0, so we have the minus signs there. And then G prime is positive on the next interval, negative on the interval after that, and then positive after that. Okay, so leading up to 0, if it goes through 0, 0, remember 0 is on this chart is right in between negative 0.5 and 3.3. So the function g is decreasing right through this interval. It's decreasing. So yes, the function g of x is positive, and because of the reasons I just said. But let's see if we can also build the graph of g of x. So now that we have the important information, we know that when x is equal to negative 0.5, we have a horizontal tangent line to the graph of g of x. And then when x is equal to, so we build it backwards, we know it's decreasing. Let's put a negative 2 point, let's extend that, negative 2.9. I mentioned I was going to build it backwards, but I don't think I want to do that. I want to just put my critical points in here and then go from there. So we have negative 4, 3.3 is over here somewhere. Let's be consistent about the colors I'm using. 3.3, and then we have 4 there. Okay, so we have a horizontal tangent line when x is equal to negative 0.5, so I got that one. Okay, so the graph is going to be coming up here like that. Horizontal tangent line means well, yeah, I mean, we have a horizontal tangent line there, f prime, g prime is 0, but then just before that value there, the value on g, just before that, g is increasing, okay? So somewhere over here, we don't really know. I mean, look, it could come down like this, it could go over here, it could go, as long as it's, as g is increasing from negative 2.9 to negative 0.5, g is increasing. So let me back up. I don't really care where I go. I don't even care if I go below the x-axis right there, but I don't want to get too busy here. But yeah, let's just go down here. And remember, at negative 2.9, g of x has another horizontal tangent line. Let me erase this horizontal, this red line there. I don't want to confuse you. So then, and then from negative 4 to negative 2.9, the function g is decreasing. Okay, so we don't really know how far it's decreasing. We just know it's decreasing. A horizontal tangent line right there at negative 2.9. Then g is increasing. I keep saying f. Everything should be f because that's just in my head. And then increasing in another horizontal tangent line at negative 0.5. Okay, and then at 3.3 we have yet another horizontal tangent line. And remember, g is decreasing until then. Okay, and again, we don't really know how far down it goes. It could go way down here, it could go here, it could go here, but it has to go through the x-axis at the origin because that's what we were given. G of 0 is 0. Okay, and g was decreasing through that x-intercept, therefore g had to be positive somewhere just before that x-intercept. Okay, so that's the actual answer to that question. How do you know? Well, because g was decreasing through the x-intercept, and the only way to do that is to be above the x-axis first, and then down through the x-intercept. So anyway, we have another horizontal tangent line, and then g is increasing to the right of that horizontal tangent line all the way up till the end of the interval. And so that right there, guys, would be a possible graph of g of x. Okay, a possible graph of g of x. And I hope that helps. You might want to, if I were you and I was sitting there thinking, wow, I didn't really get that, I would go back through, cover up your entire solution that I just gave you, and then try to go way, way back to the original graph of g prime of x and see if you can maybe walk away for a little bit and then like I said, cover up your solution and then go back to g prime of x and see if you can figure out how to draw the graph of g of x. And again, you can't know for sure, but you can get the key points on the graph. See if you can draw g of x from g prime, and then make sure your g of x goes through the origin, and see if you can reason your way through to get down here to where I showed you guys what g of x would look like. Okay? Pausing the video, and I'm going to go ahead and assign to you guys the next couple pages. Do those on your own. I'll show you the solutions to those in the next video, but that's my assignment for you, is that you do the next 2 pages on your own and then replay the videos or fast forward the videos to see if you get the right answers.